Hello, welcome to this Q&A. It's lovely to have you here watching, and I'm going to cover a few different things today. I've got an analysis of Julia Florida, or more like an approach to how you can learn this beautiful piece by Agustin Barrios, Julia Florida. I've got an analysis of Carcassi study number 3. I'll also play that for you. That's a really fun, really popular etude by Carcassi. I want to also talk about arpeggios and a few different ideas relating to arpeggios. There are a lot more things I could talk about. If you've got any questions at any point, please let me know in the chat. I'll do my best to answer. But I thought I'd start off playing a couple of pieces. So I want to play Serenata Espanola. It's just a nice, fun Spanish piece. And then Carcassi's Etude number 3. Incidentally, they're sort of in the same key, in the key of A. And then we'll dive into answering some of your questions. So here is Serenata Espanola. I also want to give a shout out to this beautiful guitar I'm holding here. This is by Cary Pedicini, who's an Australian guitar maker, who I've known for several years. You can actually watch one of my videos where I compare two of his instruments back to back. So on my YouTube channel. I really love to support local makers here in Australia. I think there are fantastic makers around, and it's very special to know them personally. So thank you, Cary. And this beautiful back and sides there, and cedar top's a double top guitar. So here is Serenata Espanola by Joaquin Malats. And here's Carcassi's Etude number 3 from his 25 Etudes opus 60. Alright, so a couple of pieces just to kick things off. Serenata Espanola and Carcassi's Etude number 3, both in the key of A. So I did mention that I'd like to do some analysis of this etude, so I think I'll start with that since I just played it. So I'm going to swap to my different screen here. There we go. So I've done this kind of in-depth analysis of Carcassi's Etude, and now it seems like quite a simple study. In some ways it's quite, it's got that kind of repetitive mold or repetitive framework. We've got this arpeggio pattern with, melody on the top, and the melody's got a distinct feature about it that you see recurring throughout the piece. But harmonically, as you can sort of see, there's actually a lot going on harmonically with this piece, and that's what creates all these lovely twists and turns in the piece. I think that's partly what's made it so popular, is these surprising harmonies that Carcassi uses. So although it's in the key of A, if I had to give a description in a nutshell of what Carcassi's doing, he's actually changing keys very often, but only temporarily. So this can sometimes be called like a passing modulation. Sometimes it's referred to as a tonicization, to be, really scientific sounding about it. So tonicization basically means like there is a temporary tonic that's been created. So we start in the key of A, and we just use, Carcassi's just using the 1 and the 5 chords of A major. So A, and then 5, E7, E7, and then A. So for the first 4 bars, clearly establish the key of A. Then we go to slightly different chords, F sharp minor. And then we get our first chord, which is suggesting a key change. The A becomes A sharp in the bass. And we get a A sharp diminished 7th chord, which moves to B7 and E. So what's going on here? We started in A and we're ending in the key of E. So Carcassi is taking us to the key of E via the dominant of E. And this is how you change keys this way in tonicization, passing modulation fashion. You use the dominant of the key that you want to move to. So we started in A, we ended up in E. So you have to think, what's the dominant, what's the fifth of E? So you go E, F, G, A, B. So you end up in B. So that's what that chord is. And Carcassi did that one more time. So we're kind of working backwards. So if we count up 5 from B, B, C, D, E, F. We get to F sharp. And that's pretty much what, even though this is an A sharp chord, it's suggesting the dominant. It's like the 5 of, dominant of B, and then B is the dominant of E. So that's where if I play these 4 bars, you'll have a listen to that motion. So beautiful. Some nice surprises there. Then in the B section, we start on an E chord, so that's a nice continuation. When we repeat the first section, the E goes to A, so that functions really nicely too. So E major is the dominant, so just continuing the E, A. Carcassi throws in this kind of surprise A sharp diminished. All he's done is he's modified 2 of these notes. From this A chord, we had an A natural here. That A natural becomes A sharp, and this G sharp becomes G natural. So he's kind of like compressed the chord to create a diminished chord. So I'll play these 3 bars for you. So here's the nice, pretty one, and then the crunched, compressed version. And you gotta crunch up your face when you play it too, just to bring out the tension. That creates a lot of tension and a bit of surprise. We're not really expecting that chord. He does write a crescendo. He also has this E pedal in the bass. So it's a lovely feature. But we're still in the key of A overall. We haven't changed key at that point. But it's kind of suggesting, I think it's foreshadowing that something's about to happen. Okay, so we get those 4 bars still in the key of A. Then we get quite a big key change here. Even though it's passing, it does go on for a bit longer this time. So now we move to the key of F sharp minor, which is the relative minor to A major. So it's like the 6th. So if you go A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, that's your relative minor. So we go to the relative minor via the dominant of the relative minor. So if you count up, you got to do a lot of counting in theory. So F, G, A, B, C. So C or C sharp specifically here. So that we get our first hint of a C sharp chord there, which goes to F sharp minor. And then we get the primary chords. Again, more counting, 1, 4, 5. The chords 1, 4, 5 of F sharp minor. So F sharp's 1. If we count to 4, F, G, A, B, and 5, C. And those are the 3 chords we get there. Usually, this is one of the really sort of funny things, like Carcassi's pulling our leg a little bit. Usually this 5 chord will go back to 1. We're expecting another F sharp minor, but instead Carcassi leaves it unresolved pretty much. He does something here, which I'll talk about in a second. He does something special there to take us back to the key of A. All right, so basically just want to know that he's gone to the relative minor. So over here he moved to the dominant, the 5th E, and here he's gone to the 6th F sharp minor. So I'll play from this bar here. And there's the arrival. Can you hear the change there? And then we go back to A. Okay, so very interesting what he's doing there. Also that addition of the B sharp, this B natural goes up to B sharp, which then goes to C sharp. That's a nice little bit of flavor as well. Okay, and then I said I'd talk about this. So what's he doing here? All right, it's very clever. If you take these three notes, so here we have a C sharp, so that's going to be part of our C sharp chord. So that's all part of the C sharp chord. What do these three notes create? What chord do they create? If we stacked those in thirds, if I put the E down here, and then we've got the D, and we've got a B, that leaves G sharp missing. E, G sharp, B, and D create E7, and that is the dominant of our original key of A. A, B, C, D, E. So that's our 5 of A, and that's how he takes us back to A major. It's pretty clever. So let's have a listen to that. I'll play it from here again, and we'll go into the A major. So. Very clever. Now, he has an A pedal, which makes you feel like things are about to come to an end. Then we get one more little tonicization, one more little passing key change, which is the dominant of B minor. There's a tinge of sadness at the end, and then an almost very standard progression at the end, except that we have this chord called a French augmented sixth chord. I won't go into what that is because I do describe it here. If you become a Patreon member, you'll get this document and a workshop where I go through this in a bit more detail. So these types of things, French augmented sixths. So that describes the steps of a French augmented sixth chord. It's like a really spicy chord that's used a lot in this period, in this style of music. So there we go. There's just a very brief walkthrough of Carcassi's study number 3. I did mention this feature of the melody. So if you're analyzing this, it can be difficult because the melody notes don't always fit into the chord, and actually Carcassi's playing on that. Sometimes it's called an appoggiatura, or a accented passing note, when you put a non-chord tone on a strong beat and then it resolves there. So that's what's happening here. We get a non-chord tone there and it resolves there, and that's why Carcassi's got the decrescendo sign there. It creates this kind of sigh in the music. It's really, really beautiful. I think there is a composer, maybe Czerny, maybe Kierenberger, someone, like that, who said that the appoggiatura, which is what this kind of creates, an appoggiatura, which means to lean, the appoggiatura is one of the most necessary ingredients in a melody. It's really important to include appoggiaturas. Gives melodies their expression, really, tension and resolution. Okay, so there's a brief walkthrough of that Carcassi Etude number 3. Next, I want to talk about Julia Florida and how you could approach learning this piece. So we need to drop the 6th string to D. That's a good start here. I'm just checking on my phone if we've got any comments here. Just bear with me one sec here. All right. One little tip I recommend thinking about when you're retuning or detuning. Let's say you're dropping the 6th string to D. I'd recommend lowering it, dropping it just a little bit too much, because the string will want to tighten up again and get sharp in probably about a minute. So I've tuned it just a tad flat, and then in about a minute or so it'll stretch back, hopefully in tune again. And then another little tip is to play the chords of the key you're playing in. So if you're tuning and the piece you're about to play is in D, make sure your D chord's in tune. It sounds kind of obvious, but it's just a little reminder. Okay, so let me check if we've got any questions. If you do have any questions, please let me know. It can be to do with anything, technique or memorizing, or arpeggios or scale playing, anything like that. Happy to answer any questions you have. So this is quite a long piece, so I can't go through the whole thing, but I do want to give you an approach. So this particular score is quite good because it has a lot of fingerings in it, which give you the instructions of how to play things. But something that's missing, there are a couple of things. Notation is always, it's limited, and I'm a big fan of adding things when you're learning a new piece, adding things to the notation to help you learn. And the types of things I like to add are positions. It's one thing. What position are you playing in at all times? Probably the first thing you want to know. Actually, before the fingerings, you want to know what position you're playing in. Then you want to put the fingerings in. I think that's been done for us already, which is very helpful. So positions and fingerings. Then there are a couple more things I want to look out for. The next one is chunking. Can I place my left hand fingers down as a chord when possible? And so this is called chunking. It's very, very helpful. It helps you to block individual notes into larger units, which is very similar to how we read language. We don't read language one letter at a time. We see words and sentences, and that's what chunking is. It's seeing the words and sentences in the music. So positions, fingerings, chunking, and then the last one would be guide fingers and or pivot fingers. Sometimes they're called anchor fingers. Guide fingers are fingers that you can shift from one chord to another. Say up, like something like that. That would be a guide finger. And then a pivot finger is where you've got, so my second finger there is a pivot finger because it's staying, or some anchor finger because it's staying down as I'm changing chords. All right, so these are the things, 4 things you want to keep in mind when you're learning a new piece. It's very, very helpful. It helps helps speed up the process of learning a lot. It helps you to navigate around the fretboard, especially thinking, mapping in the positions, especially for a piece like this, which goes all up and down the fretboard. So we've got the fingerings already. So, one of the 4 things is taken care for us already here. Let's start with positions. So right off the bat here, I want to think what position or what positions are we playing in? Now I know this piece already, so I've got a bit of an advantage, but if we go, for the beginning there, because notice this fingering, these are the string numbers here, these are the fingering numbers there, left hand fingers. So this is saying 5th string, we need F sharp, and then now how can you find this F sharp quickly? Might be one question you're wondering. I would compare it to the closest open string. So there's a G here. It's very, very close to a G. It's just a little bit under a G. So that's one way of doing it. Once you've found the note, positions are determined by where what fret our first finger is playing on. So our first finger is on, it's got this guitar has a dot on the 7th fret. My first finger is on the 9th fret. So I'm going to say when I play that note, I'm in the 9th position. And now I can see that this first finger is sliding up. I said one of the things to look out for is a guide finger. Sliding up to a G. Now I can compare that with G, and I can say that's on the 10th fret. That means this chord is in the 10th position. So now I have my positions and fingerings. So 9th up fret, and generally it's one finger per fret, not all the time. Once you're in position, generally it's one finger per fret, but there are exceptions. This is an exception here, where we've got the 3rd finger is down a fret and the 2nd finger is down a fret. So you'd have to work those out, but once you've worked them out, you'll see that chord shape there. Now when you're this high up the fretboard, one way to find these notes again is to compare with open strings, and also to use the 12th fret. The fret that meets the body is the same as the open string. So my 3rd finger is very close to the 12th fret here. So I know the 12th fret of D would be D as well. The 12th fret of the D string would be another D. So that would be here. So it's very close, just down a fret from there. So I can slide it down. And then A here on the 2nd string, that I can use open. We've got an open A, so I can use that as a way to find that note. Okay. If you want to know your harmony, or if you do know your harmony already, another way to think about this is that it's an A7 chord in 3rd inversion. So A7/G. It's another way to think about it. Okay, so it's a lot of work up front to do that, but now I have so much information that when I play it again, I won't have to work so hard. I'll just think, all right, 5th string, 9th position, and then I'm sliding that up, and then I remember that 3rd finger there, 2nd finger there. Okay, I'd also recommend looping that, divide and conquer a little bit. It's one of the techniques in my 12 practice methods. It's actually the first one, divide and conquer. I spoke about this in the last Q&A, talked about practicing. So divide and conquer, meaning let's just imagine you've got one bar to perfect and that's it. It's just how can you make this, technically and musically just as beautiful and comfortable as possible. And this is a very good step to take here. All right, so we've got the guide finger, the 1st finger sliding up, we've got the positions, we've got the chord. This helps you to remember that chord shape, to associate a name to it. It can help you quite a bit as well. So now repetition is another important one when you're learning something. So if I take those notes there that I just played and I look at that, it's exactly the same up until that point. This is where chunking can come into play a little bit here, and holding down chord shapes now. So the only difference between the 1st and the 2nd bar, the 2nd bar has these 2 notes there. This is the same as that one, so I can just ignore that. But I do want to hold this chord down. I don't want to go out of position. And then this 4th finger here is on B. So that's another good one to think about. Open strings, 12th fret. So I know that it's on the 2nd string. I know 2nd string is B. So 12th fret of the 2nd string. That'll be our B. So I'm doing the same thing, except this time going up and back down. Sometimes this is called an upper neighbor or an upper auxiliary note, right? When we go up and back. All right, so those are our first 2 bars. So see how I'm trying to hold that chord down too? I'm trying to be faithful to the notation there. So chunk together, hold, 9th, 10th position, hold that. You could even hold your second finger since you're going to play it again. You could hold that down over to there. There's really not much movement happening now, right? So I'm going, if you watch my hand closely, trying to be quite efficient. Efficient movement's very helpful because you get more control when you're more efficient. Alright, so we've done 2 bars, but I think hopefully you'd agree that we've done these 2 bars quite well. We've thought about it quite a bit, the harmony, we know what our left hand's doing, choreography of things. If we continue on here, now we see 4th string, so the melody's on the 4th string for quite a while there. So how are we going to find A on the 4th string? It says first finger. So A on the 4th string with our first finger. So another handy reference point on the fretboard is the 7th fret, because the 7th fret we get the strings below, we get the same note as the string below. So this 7th fret of the 5th string would normally be an E in the bass, but I've dropped it to D. So it's an exception at the moment. If I go across to the 4th string here, that's A. If I go across to the 3rd string on the 7th fret, that's D, just as the string below it is. Now if I go across to the 2nd string, because the tuning's different, I have to go up a fret. So that's the 8th fret for the G, and then up to the 7th fret again for the 1st string, and that's B and B there. So hopefully that answers the question for you. Where's the A? It's on the 4th string on the 7th fret. That puts us in 7th position. And now we can just think 1 finger per fret. So we're here, 3rd finger will go on the 9th fret, 2 frets higher. This one's on the 9th fret, on the 5th string. This 4th finger will go onto the 10th fret of the 5th string. And then the 3rd finger, third finger on the 4th string on the 9th fret. You see how it all lines up 1 finger per fret. Usually, most of the time, that's how it works with when you're locked into a position, you can think 1 finger per fret. And that's a beautiful example of it. So we're in 7th position, 1 finger per fret. Think about repetition. So that is exactly the same as that. The only difference now, these last 2 notes of this bar are different. We've got an open B, and then we're going to the 2nd string C sharp. Don't forget the key signature, C sharp. 2nd string with our 1st finger. That puts us in 2nd position. Do you want to write that down? 2nd position. I actually like to indicate how long we're in a given position for. So that's 10th, and then probably bracket that off. I mean, you don't have to really write it again because it's so similar to there. But yeah, here 7th position for quite a bit. There's a bit of repetition. 2nd position. Now, how long are we in the 2nd position for? If we look at the next note, D. Oh, still in 2nd position. That's 1 finger per fret. Our 3rd finger is on F sharp on the 6th string. Now, when you're in drop D, you want to think about the D, the other D string, right? This one, the 4th string, because the note will be the same, but down an octave on the 6th string. So this F sharp here will be F sharp on the same fret of the 6th string, but down an octave. There's a F sharp. Oh, it's kind of funny talking through the logistics of, finding notes on the guitar. But so we're still in the 2nd position, 1 finger per fret, and we've got an open D, and we've got an A with our first finger. What's happened there? With the left hand, that's called chunking. So I can actually put all of those fingers down at the start of the bar here to create a beautiful D major chord in first inversion. And one way I like to, encourage my fingers to do that is to write the fingerings in like this. Put them in at the start of the chord, chunk the chord, and then play the notes. Right, and now 4 individual notes become one chord. Now I see that this D is the same, so I can hold that down. I see that this first finger is sliding up as a guide finger. And then we're going up to the E there. And now my first finger goes onto D, onto the 3rd fret. So all of a sudden we go to 3rd position. 3rd position. And let's see what happens next. So still on the D there, 3rd position. Now G. So another important reference on the fretboard is the 5th fret. The 5th fret is the same note as the string above. So the 7th fret is the same note as the string below. 5th fret is the same note as the string above. So if I want, this is a G. Let me start here. If I'm on the 6th string, if I was tuned to E, that would be an A, the same as the 5th string. Then 5th fret of the 5th string is D, same as the 4th string above. 5th fret of the D string is G, same as the string above. This is the exception, because from the 3rd to the 2nd string the tuning is different. We go down a fret to the 4th fret, same as the string above, B, and then back to the 5th fret of the 2nd string is the same as the open string above. Okay, so that means we want a G. You might be more familiar with the 4th string than the 6th string tuned down to D. So you want to think 5th fret of the 4th string, G, and then drop it down onto the 6th string there. So we're in 3rd position, and 3 and 1 fall into place, 1 finger per fret, as does this B. And we talked about that one earlier. It's the same 4th fret, same as the open B. And now we get a chord again. And Aguado said that guitar music is founded on chords. I couldn't agree more. The more I study that aspect of guitar music, the more I see it. So there's a chord that we can chunk again. 3, 0, 2, 1. And we're in the 3rd position. And it's 1 finger per fret. It's beautiful. There we go. And how long are we in the 3rd position for? The first finger's still on D there. 3rd finger's moving over to a C sharp onto the 3rd string. So we're still 1 finger per fret. We're still in the 3rd position until our 2nd finger plays D here. We change. Now, 2nd finger's on the 3rd fret. 1st finger goes to this B, which is on the 2nd fret. We're in the 2nd position. Now, this might seem a little bit tedious, laborious, but it's really the best way to learn a piece quickly, fluently. It's the way you want to think. The more you practice this, the faster, the better you get at seeing music this way. You start to, without writing in the positions, you know what positions you're going to. Without writing in the chord, chunking of the left hand, you can see those things more readily. So the more you do it. All right, so we go to the 2nd position. And then so there's another chord, incidentally. From there to there, we get a chord. Those notes there. That's a G chord in 1st inversion. So this was a G. This is G/B, 1st inversion. G, B, D, B in the bass. Inversion is defined by the bass note always. All right, so there's a chord. We're staying in the second position until we bar the second fret here, and we get another chord that we can chunk. That's B minor, and I would write 1, 3, 2, 1, and this is telling us to bar, full bar the second fret. That's all in the second position, all revolving around that chord of B minor. Next, we get... Now, some versions might have an open E. Either way, you can chunk like that, or we're still in the second position. So I'd maybe put that in second position. Let's get rid of that 0, second position up until there. Now the score here has indicated the guide finger, the second finger sliding up. Now we're in, what position are we in here? With our second finger on the 5th fret and our third finger on the 6th fret. 6, 5, 4th position. We're in the 4th position. Here's a little exception though. The first finger does stretch out of position. 4th position up to there. And then we do a little slide. And then maybe that's okay to just think, going from D to E. Okay, now we get B on the 4th string. So this is another important fret. Sometimes is the 9th fret. We have a couple of notes that are the same as open string. So B on the 9th fret. So this is moving around a lot here. There are no real chord shapes to latch onto, except when we get to. Now I usually play that harmonic, that A at the end here as a harmonic on the 12th fret, which kind of does lead to a little bit of a chunk. This version's got the A there, which is setting us up for the repeat of the melody, the opening melody. So you could put 7th position there, and then we stay in the 7th position for a while, okay? So that is a little, insight into how I would map out a piece using positions, fingerings, chunking, and then guide/pivot chords. It can be nice to look at the harmony a little bit. When you chunk a chord, when you find, you're playing a chord shape, you can play the notes together, you might be curious what the chord is, but it's not necessary to do that. You can chunk without knowing what the chord actually is. All you want to try and do is hold down your fingers longer. What does holding down your fingers do longer do for your playing? One, it makes your technique more efficient, and 2, it gives you more sustain and legato on the guitar. Because if you played something, like if I play this bar here, and if I didn't hold my fingers down, right, it just becomes a little staccato and disjointed. But if I hold all the fingers down and then play, it's much more, legato is much more efficient. I don't have to think as hard. My fingers aren't moving as much. So there's the power of chunking. The power of positions, usually it's 1 finger per fret, especially with the less advanced pieces. The more advanced a piece is, then the more exceptions you're probably going to find to that rule of 1 finger per fret. But we did see a lot of the times, even in this piece, 1 finger per fret when we find the position. Position is dictated, governed by the fret that your first finger is playing. Okay, so that's my, I guess, answer to the question, how can I learn this beautiful piece? Well, you could use tablature. Even with tablature, it's very helpful to know what positions you're in, what fingerings you're using, can you chunk, and what guide fingers, with or without tablature. It's the same process. The notation will help you with this stuff a bit more, with the analysis, because you'll see what the notes are. But in terms of choreography of the left hand, you can do it with the tablature as well. Exactly the same. You can do what I just did there. So, all right, let's finish up. Got any questions? No questions so far. All right, no, all good. Let's finish up. I want to talk about arpeggios, because arpeggios, I think a lot of us practice arpeggios, and you might be aware that arpeggios are, pretty crucial part of classical guitar playing. Sometimes we think of like finger picking. We use our right hand fingers, so we're arpeggiating things a lot. It creates a full texture, melody, and accompaniment. And arpeggios are one way to do that. They're a good technical exercise, obviously, for our right hand, but there are other benefits to practicing arpeggios, which I think get a little bit overlooked today. And those benefits are arrangement purposes and for improvisation purposes. So for an arrangement purpose, for example, this is my book, The 19th Century Arpeggio Bible. Basically, I was looking through a lot of method books, and I found all these different arpeggio exercises, including Giuliani's famous 120. And I thought it would be really neat to compile them into one book, and so you get a nice variety, and you can, see what different authors were emphasizing, what they were doing. So we've got 10 different authors here. So for an arrangement purpose, for the purposes of arranging, let's say that, you can add arpeggios to a piece of music that you're playing to create a new texture. And this is what Aguado did to Saw's Grand Solo. So Saw, now I tuned my E up, so I want to tune it a bit sharp, so that because it's going to drop. All right, that's like, should be okay. All right, so Saw's Grand Solo up the top. That is how we find it in one of the early publications published by Simrock. This is Saw's Grand Solo published by Aguado. It's the same passage. So it's quite different. He's used this, gone from that to that. Really neat, really cool what he does. So Aguado's repeating this arpeggio pattern here for 3 bars, and then he sort of plays on it here, because then he takes just that part and repeats that here without the 2 quavers, and then here he takes just that part of it and he repeats that over and over again. So it's kind of creating this build up. So you've got a bit of space. It's like getting faster and faster, more and more exciting as the arpeggio is chopped. So that's an example of how you can use arpeggios to rearrange a passage. And now what does that do when you think of all the arpeggio patterns that we've got? You know, I've got arpeggios by 10 different authors. There are more out there, but all of a sudden it gives you hundreds, if not thousands, of possible ways to rearrange a passage. It could be, a saw piece. It could be, dare I say, a Brouwer piece, or Villa-Lobos. You could use different arpeggios at different points, maybe for a repeat of a passage. So these are some arpeggios by Sidney Pratton. And instead of using the typical C to G7, like that, Sidney Pratton uses, or Katarina Pratton was her actual name, uses E and B7. It's a bit more full sounding. Have a listen to the first one. Yeah, so it's really nice. And the same chords, number 2, but that and so on, right? We get a whole bunch of them. How many do we get? 12. So that's really neat. There we go. Mostly based on the same 2 chords, and each one is quite different, sort of focusing on a different technique or different aspect of arpeggio playing. We have Johann Caspar Merz. This is from his School for Guitar, and this is quite a different emphasis here. We get a melody in the bass with this kind of pedal G, and so we're going like that, and then we up the ante a little bit, triplets, and up it again to semiquavers or sixteenths. These are great exercises if you need to work on, picking fast, alternating. They're fantastic exercises for that. Very different focus to the typical arpeggios. And we get a good bunch of those from Merz, plus some of the more standard types of arpeggios, kind of thing. So those are Merz's arpeggios. These ones I really like. Another female guitarist, Louisa Kirkman, or Mrs. Joseph Kirkman, as she ascribed herself in the improved method for the guitar, which I don't really know much about who this person was, or other than this absolutely amazing method book. One of the things in this great method book are these arpeggios. So what we get is a chord progression, which is quite lengthy here, and then 24 different arpeggio patterns you can add to the chord progression. Now that's arrangement there, isn't it? Rearranging. So if you've got a bunch of chords, here are 24 different ways you could, vary those chords. You could mix and match them if you wanted to. You could create your own ones. And this leads me to improvisation. You could improvise your own arpeggio pattern as you play this chord sequence. So we go, here's the chord sequence. Okay, so there's a chord sequence, and then we get, number 1, we just add that arpeggio pattern to it, and then, etc. And number 2, number 24, and so on. So we get 24 different ones. How could you improvise your own? It's a really great question to ask, because you've got a really clear frame and limited framework to work around. You've got a chord progression. What if you just improvised, an arpeggio pattern, or changing arpeggio patterns as you play the chord? So if you then you could add some little melodic, fills. Up to this chord, now I'm going to this one. So I just improvised around that sequence using a variety of arpeggio patterns and melodic fills. I think it's a really fun exercise. You've got 24 different ones to try out and keep in your arpeggio bank, plus all the other ones we looked at, plus all the other ones we haven't looked at, including Giuliani's famous 120. And I think this is partly this is the missing link, or the missing utility of these arpeggios. You can use them to rearrange, you can use them to compose if you're composing a piece and you want to add an arpeggio pattern. Just Giuliani only gives 120 options, but we get many, many more, and you could create your own. You could improvise your own, and obviously you can work on your technique, and there's many things you can do with your technique, including preparation and using a metronome using a metronome. Dynamics can be good. So lots of good things, from a technical perspective. But have a think about what other uses there are for these arpeggios. When you're playing, maybe you're playing a simple study by Fernando Saw, and you think, well, what if I just added this little arpeggio flourish here? Aguado did it, so it's not out of the style, it's not out of the question. It's not heresy to do that. It's probably more stylistic. It's probably more stylistically appropriate to do those types of things than to follow the notation strictly. Same goes for adding dynamics and vibrato and articulation and all of those types of things, tone color changes. So anyway, I think we'll sort of wrap it up there. So thank you for joining. I do want to just mention a couple of things quickly, a couple of up and coming events. One is currently running, actually. So I'll go here. So one here is the Carcassi method book walkthrough. So I'm going through the Carcassi method in CCG. If you join CCG, you can join along. We're doing our fourth session this week. We've looked at the rudiments. We looked at C major. We looked at G major. And this week, we're going to look at D major. We're just working our way slowly through this absolutely fantastic method book. So you can check that out on creativeclassicalguitarist.com. Carcassi Arpeggios. There's a video on my YouTube channel you can check out where I go through the 22 arpeggios of Carcassi. And here's just a little bit of, the types of things we learn. Why use method books, gives you a balance of harmony and technique. It's a method book. So it's to join this, it's $99 USD a month. That gives you 4 sessions, one session a week, an hour session per week. Plus you get access to all of the other things we're doing on the Creative Classical Guitarist. This is a very exciting, dynamic community of guitarists from around the world. We've got about 40 plus members now. We've probably got about, upwards of 200 new compositions that have been created through this school. And there's a lot happening. We've got a syllabus, we've got regular events, we've got open mics, we've got master classes. If I just scroll down, you'll see how active, members are recording themselves, members are asking questions, members are recording pieces they wrote, members are uploading arrangements or compositions, their own compositions. Paula Childs says here Craig Ogden is going to play her tango, which is incredible. Amongst, Craig Ogden's playing Paula's tango amongst, pieces by Villa-Lobos and Bach and, composers Villa-Lobos. We get new members joining. There's a composition. So just fantastic creative output that's going on. We have, quite we have a syllabus that we're going through. There's a structure to it. So just to show you through that really quick, year 1 syllabus here. We do some composing first, because I like to show you that you can compose. I think it gives you a lot more motivation to know that you can compose already with the tools you already have before you learn all the nitty-gritty theory. And then we go through the nitty-gritty theory, but we make it really practical. Everything's done on the guitar. You don't learn like piano chords or anything, or jazz chords. It's all classical guitar based. Not that I love jazz. Nothing wrong with jazz, but it's not always so relevant to classical music. Why not practice the stuff that's directly relevant to the music we play? So triads, 7th chords, with catch-up months, with chord substitutions, modulation. So we just keep building up, getting more and more advanced tools, and then some pieces to compose at the end of the year. So that's the year 1 syllabus. The Carcassi method walkthrough is here as well. So I'll just go there. So we did the rudiments there, the rudiments in chords, the arpeggios, and then C major, G major. So that's what we've done so far. That's going to go over 6 months. It's broken down into about 28 parts. We've got a learning pieces course, which guides you through, gives you a process to follow when you're learning a new piece. So that's all there. It's got videos and instructions and everything for each step. We've got this CCG Google Drive where you can find tons of amazing music by the members of the school. You can find my ebooks here. They're all available for you if you become a member, if you join. And then we get, if I click on members here, we get members compositions. So if I click on Brittany's here, we get all these beautiful pieces. Here we go, annotated prelude in A minor. And let's have a little play. Beautiful, and we also get the annotations, like what the structure is, what chords are being used. That's just one example of the hundreds that are on here. And eventually the goal is to have your music published. So I go to scores here, and there we have some. I'm working on publishing more. We do get sales of these, so you can have your music available for sale. It's a great way to distribute your music. I've turned the typical publishing royalty fee sort of thing on its head. Usually 90% goes to the publisher and 10% goes to the composer, and I've flipped that completely around. So you get 90%, composers get 90%, and I get 10% just for website maintenance and promotion and things like that. So I try to record every single piece as well, every piece that's published, or it might be recorded by the composer or someone else, but I do like to record the pieces. So this is a beautiful project we did recently, where it's a whole book of pieces. All of the funds that are, all the income that's come from this one goes to a charity called Care and Relief for the Young, based in the UK. They've been helping children around the world for the past 30 years or so. But this was a really lovely project. You can listen to the whole album of the pieces that are in this book there. So there's that. And the final thing is, starting next Saturday, we've actually got 2 places remaining, not 3. So only 2 places remaining for this course, which is in-depth course. It's like a small group, just 3 people, maximum 3 people, every week for 4 months. We're going to take your pieces that you want to play really beautifully by memory, be comfortable, performing them in front of people. We're going to take those pieces and over 4 months go through the process in a small group. So I did this for the first time earlier in the year, and it was just absolutely phenomenal. I think we have a review here from Paul, who is one of the members. A great course to learn a comprehensive approach to analyzing, learning, and playing pieces, especially helpful for learning pieces where you have to learn new techniques to play them well. In addition, Dr. Dan Nistico is incredibly knowledgeable. Highly recommend it. So, it's a really, really fun approach, and you can watch this video if you go to creativeclassicalguitarist.com. Go to the store, you'll find the course there. You can watch this video, which is about 20 minutes or so, showing you a bit of the inside look of what we did. We talked about dynamics, and you can see how the participants actually implemented and applied the information really, really beautifully to what they were playing. So there's a lot happening. There's also Patreon as well, obviously. This is a Patreon Q&A. So thank you to the supporters that are on Patreon at the moment. Really appreciate the support, and you can join me on Patreon. I wasn't planning on patreon.com/ here we go. So it's patreon.com/Daniel Nistico. This is actually a complete inside look here, because this is like the my account. So we have Q&As. I'm uploading booklets, I'm uploading workshops, adding embellishments, harmonize any melody. You get a booklet with that. You get access to my ebooks. You get access to recordings. So there's a lot going on there. Analysis of Shakona with the analysis there. So that's at the moment it's a small community on Patreon. I'd love if you want to join, love to meet you there. Or if you want to go a bit more intense, love to see you on the Creative Classical Guitarist. And I think what I've seen here, anyone can compose, no matter your experience with theory or harmony, even with playing. I've seen some guitarists who, let's say, their playing is quite rudimentary, but their composition ability is stunning. I've seen that actually quite a few instances of that. And so your gift might be to compose, not to be a performer. Where the performer sort of mentality is kind of shoved down our throats a little bit. I think, in the classical world. It's like you're either a performer or you're a composer. This real divide between these identities, and I think it's a little bit less fulfilling. There's a little bit less enjoyment when you're just playing standard repertoire and that's it. I mean, that can be very enjoyable for some, but it can be also incredibly enjoyable, very fulfilling to compose your own music, or to arrange your own music, or to improvise, or all of the above. And I'm seeing that more and more. This is the second year that I've run the Creative Classical Guitarist, so it's just been a wild journey. It's just amazing. So if you have any questions for next time, please let me know, and hope to see you various avenues. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram as well. You can just shoot me an email anytime through creativeclassicalguitarist.com, or danielnistico.net is my other website. And I think we'll wrap it up there. So thank you so much, and wish you all the best in your guitar playing.